Arthur Raymond Brooks. He was a member of this Air Force Association, okay, and it was called the Union Morris Chapter 195 before it became Shooting Star. And it covered basically Morris County, Union County, and Somerset as well. It was called Union Morris until the name was changed to Shooting Star, based on the next slide here. Let's see. There we go. Based on the Shooting Star emblem on Arthur Raymond Brooks' SPAD XIII. You see the shooting star right there on the right-hand side.
There's the Jodhpurs my father had.
Pardon me?
Those are the Jodhpurs in my father's picture.
What are
My
your
father
father's
was
pictures?
in World War I,
Yes.
and I said I have a picture of him with Jodhpurs.
What are
We're
they?
John for
Pants.
Oh, the pants, okay.
They look like knickers.
Yeah, okay, sure.
They come out at the sides and they go down into like boots.
Yes, and by the way, he had to buy his uniform and his boots. That was, they weren't issued. They had to buy his own.
Everybody in World War I was given money and they had to buy everything.
That's right.
They
Okay,
had to buy everything.
okay. Well, Arthur Raymond Brooks, he was born in Framingham, Massachusetts, in November 1st, 1895. And his father owned a granary near a railroad yard. And he sort of had a mechanical aptitude because he liked to build things. He built a raft, and he also built a fishing boat, and also an ice boat that he sailed during the winter across the pond, and it would go up to 60 miles an hour. So he liked speed. He graduated from the Framingham Academy and High School as a valedictorian. He graduated from MIT in 1917 in electrochemistry. He applied to the Army Air Signal Corps and the Army Corps of Engineers. First he did the Army Air Corps Signal Corps application, and he didn't get anything back, so he applied for the Army Corps of Engineers as well, and he got accepted to both. And he took both sets of orders into, I guess, at the recruiting station, so what am I going to do? And they said, well, what would you like to do? And he said, I'd like to fly. So they ripped up the ones for the Army Corps of Engineers. And so he attended, so he enlisted again, and that was, by the way, see, he graduated in 1917, and the U.S. entered the war, World War I. I mean, it had been going on for some time. The U.S. entered the war in April 6th of 1917. And we just celebrated the 100th anniversary this past April. So that's how I got to do this talk, by the way. My Morris Plain Museum was putting together a World War I display. And I thought it'd be neat if we could dedicate a Keith Ferris World War I print, which we did. It was old number 1. It was the SPAD like that Eddie Rickenbacker used. And he was the number 1 American ace with, I think, 26 victories. And the plane that he used for the last 18, Keith Ferris painted, and we have a print of that. And we framed it, and with the help of Jim, we dedicated it on the 8th of April, almost close to the 100th anniversary of our entry into World War I. So, anyway, to get back to Brooks, so he trained with the Military Aeronautics School of Military Aeronautics using the Jenny JN-4D with the Royal Flying Corps in Canada from September to November 1917. Then they went to Texas with 139th Squadron from November 1917 to February 1918, using the Jenny again as a training plane. And then in March of 1918, he was transferred to France. And this shows him, okay, there. And then let's see, let's go a little farther here. Okay, here's another plane. This is a plane 20. Okay, it doesn't have, well, it may have had the shooting star. Can't see it anyway. By the way, the writing on these prints is by Arthur Raymond Brooks. And you can see, or maybe you can't see too well, but it's upper right. It says Arthur R. Brooks, Captain, United States, I think it's Army, Air Corps, or Reserve. And then it's, does it say 139th? Yeah, 139th and 22nd Aero Squadrons. And that was in the 2nd Pursuit Group. Each group had about four squadrons, and these are the 2nd Pursuit Group. And I can't. Yep. And then the names of the crew. So the crew is written on there by him as well. So after his first victory in the 139th, he became captain of the 22nd Aero Squadron, and he designed the shooting star emblem. And after 120, he completed 120 missions within 5 months. By the way, he didn't expect to live, because the life expectancy of a pilot in World War I was like 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, you know, and you understand why. You see the open cockpit, they had no parachute. In fact, a lot of them were cavalry officers before they became pilots, and they thought that using a parachute was being chicken or something like that. And that if you had a parachute, that the pilot would be more apt to not fight and just, jump out of the airplane. So that, for various reasons, they didn't have parachutes. Let's see.
I think the balloonists have parachutes.
Okay, here's the aerodrome in Toul, France. Now you see, those are 2 SPADs. One is, you see the 22 on one. I'm not sure if there's a 20 on the other one or not, but you see the, you see the S is a SPAD, right? You see that?
Yeah.
And of course on the wing they have the U.S. emblem. Okay.
Was that roundel for the U.S. aircraft?
Pardon me?
There was a roundel on a particular wing. Is that U.S. roundel?
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about the round emblem on top?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's U.S. A lot of them had the round emblems. Yeah, that
Well,
was.
the French had one and the English had one.
Yeah, they all had round. They had round circles, but they had different colors
Different colors, right?
in the center. And I'm not sure which. The U.S. had either a red or in the center.
Hard to tell from that picture.
Yeah, you can't tell. You're right. Absolutely.
Pictures in the black and white.
Right. Okay. Anyway, he flew four SPADs, and they were named Smith 1, 2, 3, and 4. They were named Smith because he didn't want to name his plane after his fiancée Ruth, because he didn't want somebody to say, well, Ruth is down because, got shot up by the tail or something like that. So he named his plane Smith because that's where she was going to college. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So anyway, let's see. A little more about his career. Well, let's see. See, I guess we should go through the slides and then we'll go into the videos. Yeah, okay. So let's take the next one. Okay. I'll just go, okay, before he got to this facility, he came back. His plane, Smith 4, was shipped back for bond drives. And eventually wound up in the Garber Smithsonian facility, storage facility, and I think it's Silver Springs or something like Silver Lake, Maryland. Okay, and that's where this picture is taken. But anyway, he resigned from the Army in 1922, and he continued on aviation. He flew for the Army Reserve, and he worked for the United States Commerce Department surveying air routes and supervising installation of beacons to help pilots navigate the mountains. And he set up beacons, navigation beacons. Now, Bob, you said something about that you knew about his beacon activity, or you flew using his beacons, or something like that. Is that true?
I said it is true.
That's true, right, okay.
I don't remember.
Okay, all right. Anyway, he was involved in contract airmail Route 10. He worked for the U.S. Department of Commerce, Aeronautics Branch, and was responsible for surveying what become the nation's first air routes. And these air routes were U.S. mail routes. And he set up beacons that would go from like New Jersey up to Maine, or from New Jersey down to Virginia, or from New Jersey out to Pennsylvania. And he set up these, every 20 miles would be a light beacon for navigation at night.
They used like railroad lines.
Yeah, I guess during the day you could see where you were going, yeah. But during the night you needed some beacons. So he was involved in doing that. And the midpoint was in here in New Jersey. So that's how I think he got to here in New Jersey. He moved to New Jersey, okay, from Massachusetts. And then he worked with Bell Labs from 1928 to 1960, developing radio telephone communications, perfecting radar during the war, and air-to-ground communications. And he flew a tri-motor Ford. In fact, remember Bob Hodges, when he grew up, he would, sometimes he'd go out to like Brookside, and from Brookside he could see this tri-motor Ford flying when he was visiting family out there, and that was probably Ray Brooks flying. So, in 1936, he made a call to his wife in Short Hills, I think it lived. Eventually he moved to Summit. And in Short Hills, he made a call to his wife, and she said, she answered the phone, she says, "I can't hear you too well because there's some fool that's flying outside." And he said, "Yeah, that's me." So, moving forward to this period here, about 1985, he was visiting the Smithsonian Institution National Air and Space Restoration Facility in Silver Hill, Maryland, with a family member. And upon entering the storage hangar, as part of the tour, he spotted the spot, as you can see there. As he drew near the aircraft, he was astonished to discover it was his very own aircraft. He climbed into the cockpit, and the technician told him to get out. You're destroying property. And anyway, they, realized that it was his plane, and they got the historian there was Garber. Garber was the historian for the Smithsonian, aviation historian for them, and they established quite a relationship. Anyway, they restored this plane, and when Brooks was 90, they displayed it at the Air and Space Museum and the dedication, and he was there. And and then they interviewed him. They have some, and I have some interviews on some of the tracks on this DVD. So let's see. Go farther. That's the that's a photo I took that about 5 years ago, and you can clearly see the the shooting star, the 20, and then if you look closely above, let's see. Let's see, this thing doesn't work very well. I guess the battery went dead. I was going to show you. See, up on the first, up by the, you can see Smith 4. Don't look at it. Don't point at anybody's.
Yeah.
I guess the battery went dead.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to point it out on there.
Yeah, go ahead, sure. You see Smith 4. That's right there. Smith 4. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where, do that again?
Smith 4.
Smith 4, right there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need technology.
No. So, let's see. So anyway, after he maintained an active interest in flying into his 90s. He attended many reunions. Let's see, next. Here's his trimotor, Ford trimotor. Yeah, his chief pilot, 1928 to 1960. Yeah. And here's some of the reunions. He used to go to the Rhinebeck reunion. You can see in the left-hand side they got the shooting star on that little truck. You see that? Yeah. Yeah. And on the right is he used that's October 1988. And he used to go the last Sunday in October to the Rhinebeck field and their display.
Is that him in a wheelchair?
Yeah, he's in the wheelchair. He's in the wheelchair, and that's Cole Palin right next to him. Cole Palin. Yeah.
I'm sure they have SPADs up in Rhinebeck, right?
Yeah, they still have it.
Yeah.
Okay, at 90 he was going strong. Okay, and there was a series of articles. This whole article was put together by. Can you read it?
You want me to read it for you?
Jack
No.
Elliott.
Jack Elliott. Do you know who Jack Elliott is, right? He's a member of our chapter. He was. He does not. And I mentioned to Esther Ann, his wife, that we were doing this talk, but she had another appointment. I guess she had a driving session or something like that. Safe driving. She couldn't make it. And I guess Jack is not too mobile. But Jack Elliott wrote this article. And on the right-hand side is Arthur Raymond Brooks, okay, at 90, and there's Paul Garber, at that time, the historian emeritus from Smithsonian. Now, what do I do?
Well, your lamp's on. I think you ran to the end of the presentation.
Oh, okay, wow. Now there's another piece to it. Let's see.
More slides.
Okay. Oh, it's, let's see. What do you think, Toby?
Down there.
There's one thing.
Why'd you click on slideshow?
Okay.
Then you see the whole place.
There we go, forward again, okay.
Oh.
Okay, I'll quickly go through this. The one thing, we have one slide left.
And same thing happened.
Same thing happened.
Maybe.
I don't know why. I got something wrong here. So. I thought there was one there. Okay, that's it, right there. Oh, okay. Whoops, you okay? I guess we can't read that too well, right?
Yeah, right.
Can you read it? No, okay.
Man in the sky. Here's the Ray Brooks hail, hardy and mighty. He salutes.
You want to read it for us? I'll get it. Wait a minute.
Somebody wrote this. Oh, Paul Parker wrote that.
Backup copies here, okay.
Early Garber Motors, was that?
Yeah, Paul Garber himself.
Yeah. Paul Garber wrote this poem to Ray Brooks on his 90th birthday. And I thought we could read it together, but it doesn't look like it. Ode to Ray Brooks. Fill up your glasses and raise them on high. We'll all drink a toast to the man in the sky. Here's to Ray Brooks, hail hearty and mighty. We salute you, dear Ray, as your age becomes 90. Many years have passed since that day long ago when President Wilson said, Kaiser, no, no. You can't keep on sinking our ships on the sea. We'll make the world safe for democracy. So on April 6, 1917, we entered the war and our Raymond got keen. He said to that girl at Smith College, by and by, I'm off to enlist and learn how to fly. Your name will forever stay close to my heart when I holler contact so my engine will start. But I won't write your name on the side of my plane for the Germans to look at and then to take aim. The name of Smith College will help win the war, reminding me of that dear girl I adore. So thus he enlisted and learned about wings, the engines, propellers, and all flying things. He earned silver wings for his shirt and his jacket, and went off to France and all that World War racket. He piloted airplanes, Smith 1, 2, 3, 4, and his Victory 6 helped win the World War. At last he came home to the USA, and to his surprise and delight one fine day, in Washington, there in a museum, he saw an airplane that caused him to say, whee, hooray! There was Smith 4, the same spot he'd been flying when he became an ace, but almost became dime. When an enemy bullet cut his rudder controls and 3 other shots made some big windshield holes. Now in the museum, with a shout of delight, he greeted his airplane, a beautiful sight. Being more nimble then, he climbed into the seat and shouted, now this makes my day more complete. With one hand on the stick and the other on the throttle, then wiggled the rudder, and then he said, what'll I do now? Where's someone to pull on the prop? But suddenly there came a man shouting, stop! What do you mean sitting there in that seat? Get out, I say, get out, I repeat. Who are you that's sitting where you should not sit? Who are you that dares to be in that cockpit? Then Ray said, I have the right, it's my airplane. I flew it in France and I want it again. To relive my memories, so I transgressed. I've done it no harm, 'twas thus he confessed. He said, I'm Ray Brooks, and those gravestones there on the fuselage show you that I did my share. Then he who had shouted stop exclaimed, oh dear Ray, I've wanted to meet you for many a day. Sit there as long as you want, but for me, what's much better, when you get home, please write me a letter. Tell me all the details you remember and more of the story of yourself in this SPAD Smith 4. Thus a friendship began that continues today with Curator Paul and World War I ace Ray. I always will treasure the friendship we share. God bless you, dear Ray, every day, everywhere. It's Paul Garber, October 29th, 1985.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's really nice.
I think we ought to clap for that.
Thank you. So with that, we'll go to the video. Let's see if we get the video
You
going.
can turn the mic off. We don't need that.
Okay, sure.
German pilots and planes were always on the cutting edge of tactics and technology. They were a formidable foe for the Americans who took to the skies above France in 1918. The United States Army Air Service was equipped and trained by the French. Though some pilots had flown in the French Lafayette Escadrille earlier in the war, most had no combat experience. America's first dogfighters will be tested as never before. September 14, 1918, Mars-la-Tour, France. American pilot Arthur Raymond Brooks, in a formation of 6 SPAD XIIIs, patrols over the Western Front. Soon, they spot 3 formations of German Fokker D-7s in the distance. The Americans move in. Instinctively, Brooks checks 6 and sees a formation of 12 enemy Fokkers.
I saw them as they neared us, but had no time to warn the leader of our flight, other than by just nosing down, gaining speed, and then turning to the right, over his head, and into the Fokkers.
Brooks's abrupt maneuver separates him from his flight. 4 of the German planes continue on to attack the rest of the SPADs, but 8 stay to fight the lone American. The sky explodes to a furious and deadly contest. September 14, 1918. American pilot Arthur Raymond Brooks wings straight into the fight of his life. He's surrounded by 8 German Fokker D-7s.
I was scared, but in spite of much high tension and yelling at the top of my voice, I calculated, by the nature of my training I suppose, that I would get as many Fokkers as possible before the inevitable.
Brooks is up against a lethal adversary, the Fokker D-7.
It is 100% universally felt that the Fokker D-7 was the best fighter aircraft of World War I. It had a wing that was thick, which allowed it to maneuver very quickly.
Brooks's SPAD XIII, with a 220 horsepower Hispano-Suiza 8BC engine and a top speed of 138 miles per hour, is sturdy but plagued with engine problems. Both planes are armed with 2 forward-firing machine guns. The SPAD is faster and better in a dive, but the Fokker D-7 is more agile in a turning fight. Brooks initiates violent evasive maneuvers, skidding, looping, and diving, anything to prevent the circling Fokkers from getting a clean shot.
In the heat of the fight, Brooks was probably alternating between panic and the coolness of desperation. His mind was fixed on a number of things at once.
Adrenaline surges as he fights to stay alive amid the chaos of swirling airplanes. Suddenly, one Fokker dives towards him in a head-on pass. Desperate to save fuel and ammunition, Brooks heads directly at the Fokker, intent on ramming the German.
It seems like a real dramatic last-ditch move. No telling what damage you're going to inflict on your own airplane with something like that.
Just before impact, the German peels under and dives away. Brooks reverses. To survive, he must keep moving. Another Fokker bores in head-on. Brooks speeds by.
I turned immediately on another, feeling that a vigorous offense was the best defense.
Brooks is here. A Fokker is firing on him here. In this kind of dogfight, Brooks must take a shot at every opportunity. As the German dives on him, Brooks will skid out of the stream of bullets. Then, when the Fokker passes underneath, Brooks will roll over the top of his enemy and bring his guns to bear. The German bores in. Brooks pulls hard back on the stick. The SPAD leaps skyward.
I had just enough time to dip enough to see his features before I fired incendiaries, and he was aflame.
All he had to do was pull himself across without having to slow down or align fuselage. He could rake his gun right across the plane.
It's a brilliant move. Brooks's two .303 caliber Vickers make quick work of the Fokker. One down, but he's facing 7 more. Brooks spots a Fokker at 2 o'clock, starting a pass.
That out of his peripheral vision, he realized, and believe me, you realize these things in a nanosecond, that the geometry to rake somebody else was right there.
Brooks cranks to the right and peppers the Fokker with machine gun fire. Down. But knocking the Hun aircraft down may play to Brooks's disadvantage.
It was being surrounded that saved me thus far. The Germans could not shoot at me without being in their own way most of the time, or bringing one of their own aircraft into the line of fire.
The Germans just saw 2 of their squadron mates go down. They're angrier now. In terms of flying more aggressively, I'm sure it's like, we're going to finish this SOB right now.
The 6 other Fokkers drone in like angry hornets, determined to knock the SPAD out of the sky. September 14, 1918. American pilot Arthur Raymond Brooks has knocked out 2 German Fokker D-7s. But 6 remaining fighters close in. Brooks must stay aggressive and constantly on the move, never remaining a stationary target for long.
One of the things we typically do when in an outnumbered situation, you want to switch a lot. Work on it and switch back to somebody else.
White tracer ribbons could cut through between my wings often, so close that if I reached out my hand, the stream of bullets would have cut it off.
Brooks pitches up to evade another attack. But as he rolls over the top, his engine sputters. His prop windmills slowly. He's run out of fuel in his main tank. He switches to the auxiliary tanks located in the center section of the top wing.
I stared at the blade and instinctively nosed down just as an enemy burst swept in front of my forehead, shattering my windshield and clattering into my right gun, rendering it useless except for single shots.
He's in what's called the outer stratosphere of tension and anxiety and fear. In this environment, you don't have time to think. Too much is going on that's very heavy, so you're reacting. What happens is you fall back to your level of training in a situation like this.
Brooks manages to restart the engine. As he dives for airspeed, he gets lucky.
2 more Bosch planes in their tactical work happened to get in the way of my now single line of fire.
Brooks opens up. White-hot incendiary bullets, a new kind of ammunition designed to set enemy aircraft on fire, rip through the Fokkers.
This was still too much attention to suit me. I figured the danger was greater for me now than with the whole swarm, because there was less chance of the Germans getting in their own way.
Brooks decides to exploit the only advantage his SPAD XIII has over the Fokker D7: diving speed. His 220 horsepower SPAD can outdive and outrun the Fokker D7. He bobs and weaves as the Germans lob tracers at him.
He knows that if somebody's back behind him shooting, if he continues straight and level, they're going to hit him. So he's trying to skid the airplane and just make himself unpredictable to get out of the plane of those bullets.
Finally, the Germans break off. The grueling dogfight is over.
I don't know how I got back. One incendiary bullet had burned itself out in the main spar of my upper wing. 5 bullets went through my fuselage within 4 inches of my back. Holes were scattered all over my poor SPAD. The aircraft had to be salvaged.
During the incredibly intense action, Brooks has fought off 8 Fokker D7s, the most advanced fighter of the war, while downing 4 of them. It's a stunning achievement, but under the victory rules of the day, Brooks is only credited with 2 kills. World War I ended less than a month after Brooks's epic battle. The 4 years of war saw astonishing leaps in aviation.
It's been guesstimated that in those 4 years, the extent of engineering and technical and operational knowledge that was gained was equal to what might have been 15 or 20 years of peacetime development.
By the end of the war, you had aircraft with 200 plus horsepower engines. You had aluminum frames on the aircraft, whereas before everything was wood. You had supercharged engines, and you had pilots using parachutes and oxygen. Like it or not, war enhances technological growth out of necessity.
Modern-day fighter pilots streak into battle, sheathed in electronics and armed with incredible weapons that strike beyond the horizon. But these modern warriors are indebted to the men who flew in open cockpits and fought their foes face to face, inventing the dogfight.